What's up, y'all? My name's Jess. I'm an EF Ultimate Break brand ambassador, and today I'm going to be reviewing their Greek Islands trip. Let's get into it. Cue intro. If you're unfamiliar, EF Ultimate Break is a group travel company specializing in travel for people ages 18 all the way to 35, and they do all the heavy planning for you. Each trip price includes things like flights, if you opt in, hotels, transportation to and from cities, tickets to iconic attractions, metro passes, a full-time tour director, guided city walks, breakfast every day, and so much more. EF Ultimate Break is by far the best way to travel. I personally have been to 16 countries with them thus far, which blows my mind every single time I say that. And I have also been an ambassador since the end of 2019. With that, if you're looking to book your first EF Ultimate Break trip, do so through the link in the description box. It's going to activate my promo code UAJustMannering100, which will give you an additional $100 off on top of sale prices. You literally can't beat it. Now, full transparency, I was not supposed to be on the Greek Islands tour. I was actually supposed to be on the second departure of Cruise Greece. Essentially, we were going to be sailing around to Hydra and the Saronic Islands, but unfortunately, the boat that was going to be utilized for this new trip was not up to EF standards, so instead they pivoted our trip to be the Greek Islands trip. Now, while it was definitely a little bit of a letdown, it was definitely necessary, and I do thank EF for not allowing us to get on a boat that really wasn't up to the standards and quality that EF is used to producing. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's get into the details. Greek Islands trip hits one country and 4 cities over the course of 11 days. During this trip, you'll be visiting Athens, Santorini, Paros, and beautiful Mykonos. There are 2 different trip types offered for the Greek Islands trip, and that is Essential or Plus. Essential is going to be more of those hostel-like accommodations with more people to a room, and the Plus option is going to give you only 2 people per room in those more upgraded accommodations and some additional meals included. This trip is rated a low activity level, so essentially what that means is you will be doing some walking, but it's absolutely nothing that you can't handle. Now that we've touched base on the general information about the Greek Islands, we're going to get into the day-to-day recap so you can see the accommodations that we used, my favorite free time suggestions, some food and nightlife recommendations, and so much more. Here we go. On day 1 of the trip, you're going to board your overnight flight to Athens, Greece. I went from Pittsburgh to Toronto, Toronto to Montreal, and Montreal to Athens, Greece. Now, while that seems like a little bit of a long flight itinerary, it honestly wasn't that bad. The flights from Pittsburgh to Toronto and Toronto to Montreal were super quick. While the flight to Athens overnight is a little bit longer than a typical flight that you would take in your day-to-day, it's really not that bad, especially if you're someone that can sleep in those non-traditional locations. Time actually flew by, and maybe that's because I watched far too many Harry Potter movies on the way over, but it was over in a flash. On day 2, I landed in Athens, Greece incredibly early. In fact, I think I was the first person there, which was super fun for me. One thing about me, I love getting to a location early, so I have all day to either explore around or get a little bit of rest in before trudging in to the evening activities. When I arrived at the airport, I met up with some other fellow travelers who were going to be on the trip, and we all headed over to our first accommodation, which was the Athens Tiare Hotel. Now, this hotel was absolutely lush. I'm talking a marble spiral staircase, the cleanest rooms with the comfiest beds, banging air condition, a huge shower, a lengthy mirror, great lighting. I mean, this place was 10 out of 10. Phenomenal. Some people in our group opted to walk around and explore, but I needed some good rest and relaxation, so I actually took a quick nap and then started to get ready for our welcome dinner that evening. Our welcome dinner was at a traditional Greek restaurant called Savas Kebab, and it was mouth-wateringly delicious. Not only did we have great food and good cocktails, but we also got to overlook the Acropolis, which never ever gets old. I've been to Greece several times and I just cannot take my eyes off of it. From there, some of the group opted to go to MS Roof Garden to get another great look at the Acropolis and some delicious cocktails. But honestly, my favorite part of the evening was sitting with some of the new travelers that I had never traveled with before and just getting to know them. After a quick cocktail and some fun with my new friends, we headed back to the hotel to get a good night's sleep because the next day was jam-packed with activities. Day 3 was our second and last full day in Athens, so you know we had to do it right. Traditionally, on this day, travelers will go to a tour of the Acropolis and take a walking tour around the general area. But because I had been to Greece with EF Ultimate Break before, I had already done all of that. And while I love looking at the Acropolis, it was just far too hot for me to put myself in that position again. So instead, me and a few of my friends opted to do our own thing during the day. Our first stop of the day was to Fairy Tale Athens, which is an amazing eatery in and of itself, but it is absolutely stunning and arguably the most Instagrammable place in all of the city, flooded with pink and flowers and vines, and it's just the perfect place to spend any lunchtime afternoon. From there, we wanted to get a cutie little afternoon cocktail, so we opted to go to Attic Urban Rooftop to have a cute look at the Acropolis, get some appetizers, and just enjoy one another's company. Then it was time to get changed and meet up with our group as we were going to check out Poseidon's temple. The temple itself was absolutely jaw-dropping and it overlooked the ocean, which was just so stunning. It's honestly crazy to me when I look at these huge pieces of architecture and think like how they were built, when they were built, and how they've lasted this long. It will never cease to blow my mind. And after that, our entire group went to this beachside bar called Thymari Con Gusto, and honestly, we had the absolute best night. We got to go swimming at sunset, had delicious cocktails, some great food, and honestly, their staff was incredible. It also helped that they had cutie little dogs running around everywhere. Then we headed back to our accommodations, got some rest because we had to be up super freaking early to take our first ferry to Santorini. On day 4, we took our bags and checked in to the SMY Horizon Santorini. It was the most beautiful hotel I think I've ever stayed in my entire life. It had a pristine view. The food was out of this world. They had a gorgeous pool, which was like the perfect temperature. Staff was really funny, kind, and accommodating. The rooms were great, and I felt like we had so much room. Truly could not recommend that place enough. Then we did a super quick change into our bathing suits and cover-ups and headed over to the black sand beach to hang out at Alkionida. It was a little beachside restaurant that had cute lounge chairs and umbrellas so we could order some fresh food and cocktails while swimming in the sea. This was another place that had a ton of animals running around, except this place had cats and they were so cute. They just wanted to come up and lay on our laps with us. And truthfully, I really wanted to take one home. After an afternoon in the sun, we went back to our hotel, got changed, and headed out for an evening of adventure. Our first stop of the night was to Rastoni, which was an absolutely jaw-droppingly gorgeous Italian place on a cliff in Santorini that overlooked the water. This was actually a reservation that our tour director made for the entire group, so it was so special just to be able to spend time with our friends at such a beautiful and delicious place. After that, half of our group decided to go to a Greek wedding show. This was probably the highlight of the entire trip for me. It was such a freaking fun night out. Different to some other shows that I've been to, this one was really interactive. So essentially when you first got there, they greeted you as cousin, and then you were talking to them and interacting with them throughout the entirety of the show. There was dancing, plate smashing, singing, great acting. It was just so fun. And we also had some really good snacks and unlimited wine. 10 out of 10 would recommend. If this is offered to you on your tour, you have to go, no questions asked. After the Greek wedding show, a lot of us decided that we were gonna go meet up with the rest of the group at a local club that was a couple places down from where we were actually at the show. I love me a good night out with dancing, singing, and just really vibing. So we went to Town Club, which was so fun. The cocktails were super well priced. The vibes were just there. It was jam-packed. The music was amazing. And they even had a birdcage, which we all had to dance in. It was just like a rite of passage for that evening, but we had so much fun. When we were all ready to go home, our tour director bussed us back to the hotel and we got a great night's sleep. On day 5, we woke up, we had some breakfast, we went on a little tour of town, and then we got ready to go to Venice Santos Winery. This winery was another place that was on a cliffside overlooking the water, and it was stunningly beautiful. This place is one of the most beautiful places I have ever seen. We got to do a wine tasting, we had some snacks, we giggled, we laughed, we just had such a great time. After the winery, our group took a trip over to Ia and we had free range to shop, look around, get some food, do really whatever we wanted to do that made our hearts happy. And your girl loves to eat good food. So I took a recommendation from one of my friends that had been there previously, and we decided to go to King Neptune's. Not only did we have a gorgeous view, but the food was truly out of this world. The food in Greece is some of the best food in the entire world. So I was so happy to have another great meal. We enjoyed some wine, and at this point the sun had started to go down, so we got to watch the most beautiful sunset I think I've ever seen in my life. Now, because we had such a crazy night the night before, I fully planned on going back to the hotel and catching some Z's. However, my friends had some other plans. So the night previously when we were at Town Club, there was a bar next door called Murphy's, which was an Irish pub. And one thing about me and my friends, we find an Irish pub every single place that we go. And we always have just the best nights out there. So my one friend, Cody, said, why don't we go for just one drink? And if you've ever heard just one drink before, you know that's not really what it means. Not only did he have me there till approximately closing, but a lot of our group as well. We danced, we sang, just like the night before. We had so much freaking fun. Our tour director even came out for a little bit and had a blast with us. It was just the best time ever. So highly recommend paying a visit to Murphy's when you're in Santorini. On day 6, after 2 full nights out was a little bit rough and we had to get on a ferry to go to Paros. When we got to Paros, we checked into the Hotel Norges, which is such a freaking cute place. Stunning, had a great pool, the beds were comfy and big. Absolutely loved it. To be completely honest with you, I was absolutely exhausted. So the first thing that I did when we checked in was take myself a little nappy nap. And honestly, 90% of my group, I think, followed along with that nature. But we had to be ready for a late afternoon and evening of fun because we all opted to do a Paros boat cruise, which was going to be like 4 hours or so of swimming, eating, dancing, and just enjoying all that there was to see. This was another one of those must-do activities if you're offered it and when you're there. We had a sincere blast, but being in the sun and doing activities all evening really had me exhausted. So I went home, took a quick shower, ate probably the quickest meal I had this entire trip, and then went straight to bed. On day 7, we got up and the group went to Krios Beach Bar, which was so relaxing and just great compared to the go that we'd had the last couple days. Get some good food, some cocktails. The staff was super accommodating, really nice, really fun, and just overall had a great afternoon. After spending the day in the sand and the sun, we went back to the hotel, got freshened up, and then headed to Nausa for dinner at Exynos. This seafood restaurant was a 10 out of 10 for me. The food was phenomenal. Their sushi was chef's kiss. Cocktails were good. They just had so much on the menu to choose from. It was impeccable. Then our group headed out to get some gelato. We even stopped to have a little dance sesh at one of the bars nearby. And then it was time to catch some Z's because the next day we were headed to Mykonos. On day 8, after a hop, skip, and a jump ferry ride, we headed over to our next accommodation, which was Alkistis Mykonos. Not gonna lie, this was probably my least favorite accommodation. First of all, it sits on a huge hill, okay? And you have to quite literally walk all the way to the top to get to your rooms. Now, my room was very, very close to the tippy top. So in order for me to go up or down, it was easily like a 15-20 minute walk straight uphill. Not really my vibe. While the rooms were clean, the beds were kind of uncomfortable. In my personal opinion, I felt like I was low-key sleeping on a box spring. I will say they had a really pretty pool, a good restaurant on site, and not a terrible location. Nonetheless, we really weren't in the room that much other than sleeping, so it really wasn't the biggest deal. I just always like to be transparent and honest with y'all. Later on in the day, our entire group had reservations to go to Paradise Beach Club. We had a little VIP section, which was amazing. Buy one, get one drinks. There was a DJ. The music was incredible. We literally danced our butts off for freaking hours. If you're looking for that day club vibe where you can just dance and hang out, this is the perfect place to go. Honestly, one of the highlights from our trip. After quite a few hours at Paradise Beach Club, we went back to the hotel, got changed, and went next door to Nosotros for dinner. I got this fresh shrimp bowl for dinner. It had a ton of veggies in it. It had great seasoning. Honestly, my favorite meal of the whole trip came from that place, and it was time for bed. On day 9, we had a free day, so in the morning, me and a few friends opted to literally go lounge on the beach and just bask in the sunshine as if we hadn't gotten enough of it the last week or so. We played mermaids in the water, had some great snacks, got a phenomenal Fredo, which if you don't know what that is, it's the most amazing iced coffee in existence. And then in the late afternoon, our whole group got together and we went out to Nice and Easy for dinner. Not only is it a phenomenal spot for really good food, but it also has an impeccable view of the sunset. A lot of us were up for a good night out because Mykonos is truly known for their nightlife. So we all decided to head to Scandinavian Disco to kick the night off. Honestly, it's a lot smaller in there than I anticipated. I had a few people recommend to go there for a great night out, and it was so fun. From there, some of our group went home and some of them continued on. A bunch of us wanted to go to a drag show at Jackie O's, which was a freaking phenomenal evening. Sang to Grease, Mamma Mia, and in between there was an amazing DJ that played fire music. Definitely check it out. Now, the next day we kissed goodbye to Mykonos and headed back to Athens. Here we checked into the Zavolia Hotel, which was another stunning, gorgeous, and a little bit more upscale hotel. I absolutely loved it. A lot of our group got changed and then went on a little trip to Leviticus Hill to watch the sunset. If you're unfamiliar, this is one of the most iconic lookout points from all of Athens, and it's absolutely stunning and known for their jaw-dropping sunsets. From there, a lot of us opted to go to Domini Cinema, which is an outdoor cinema where you can watch popular movies. At this point, we got to see the new Indiana Jones movie that had just come out when we were there, and it was so fun. They had this amazing snack bar. I mean, you name it, they had it. Honestly, it was just such a cool change of pace from the other nights that we had previously had on tour, so it was really nice, and I very much enjoyed it. The next day was kind of a bonus day for us because, again, as I told y'all, the initial trip we were supposed to be on was 12 days, and we already had our flights booked for that. We actually ended up getting a bonus day in Athens, which was amazing, and we utilized that to go see some of the islands that we were initially supposed to be staying on during the cruise Greece trip. The Saronic Islands day trip was absolutely incredible. Honestly, I really wish I would have been able to experience the cruise Greece trip because some of these towns were just so quaint. They didn't allow cars. It was very mom and pop shoppy, which I absolutely love. So it was just an absolute dream. Once all of that was over and done with, we went back to our hotel and got ready for the farewell dinner, which is always my least favorite part of tour. Our group went to Lantos Cafe. The food was pretty good. I, at this point, was sick of eating kebabs. It could have been better on my end. I should have ordered something differently. That is my own fault because we did have choices. Because I picked this meal earlier on in tour, I didn't know that I would be sick of it by that point, but nonetheless, we had an absolute great time. I always hate saying goodbye to my new friends. It's really, really hard for me, but as I do with all of my trips, I always end up traveling with the friends that I have met more than once, so it wasn't a goodbye. It was definitely just an I'll see you later. Day 12 was our final day in Athens, and we were ready to fly home. My flight path was essentially the same as on the way there. I went from Athens to Montreal, Montreal to Toronto, and then Toronto back to Pittsburgh. Or at least that was the flight itinerary I was supposed to have until I ran into some flight trouble, but we'll get into that. That's all for the day-to-day recaps, but we're not done with the video. I asked you to submit your burning questions on this trip via my Instagram, and we're gonna go ahead and answer those now. Question number 1, what is there to see that's not necessarily beaches? I'm not gonna lie to you, this is a pretty beach heavy trip. However, the beauty of it is you can do as much or as little with a group as you want. So if you're more of a history buff, there is a ton of things to do surrounding history. In Athens in particular, they have a ton of archaeological sites that you can visit. You can also go to the National Archaeological Museum. Of course, they're going to tour the Acropolis, so that checks that one off the list. They have the Parthenon, Temple of Zeus, and so much more, but there are also more historical things that you can do on the islands as well. Honestly though, in my personal opinion, if you're not a huge fan of beaches, this probably isn't the trip for you. Question number 2, how are the ferries? I truthfully think that this depends on A, the weather that day, B, the wind that day, C, things like how you're feeling. So if you're somebody that went out drinking the night before, it might be a little bit more difficult to get on a ferry in the morning. Though I'm gonna be totally honest with you, we got on a lot of the fast ferries and those are a lot easier on the stomach and not so much all of this, if you know what I'm saying. So my experiences really weren't that bad, although I will say an absolute staple for those for me was A, making sure that I kept my body hydrated, but B, most of all, make sure you bring some non-drowsy Dramamine. That stuff was killer in keeping my stomach in check and making sure that I didn't get motion sick. Number 3, do's and don'ts of what to bring. So let's start with what you need to bring. First and foremost, sunscreen. So sunscreen, if you purchase it in Greece, is going to be a little bit more expensive. So I always opt to pack it in my checked bag and just bring it along with me. Another thing is after sun care. So again, if you're somebody that's going to spend a little bit too much time out in the sun, you do not want to be in pain throughout the time that you're there. So make sure you bring some kind of after sun lotion or aloe just to make sure your skin stays hydrated. Absolutely, please bring a portable fan, especially if you're visiting Greece in summer. It gets incredibly hot, and being able to take out a portable fan and just give yourself some rapid relief is absolutely, without a doubt, necessary. Always, always, always bring a good pair of comfortable walking shoes. I always bring my Adidas NMDs for my tennis shoes for every single trip that I take. And I always take a comfortable pair of sandals as well. Obviously, when you're in Greece, you're going to be doing a lot of water-based activities or things of that nature. So you're going to want to have a good pair of sandals to take along with you as well. This might be unpopular, but take water shoes. I'm not going to say that sea urchins are super common everywhere, but they do exist. And I promise you, you do not want to step on one of those. Absolutely not. So anytime I went into the water in depth, I always made sure to have water shoes on. I don't care if you feel like you look silly. If you're definitely worried about stepping on something not so nice, bring them with you. Another thing I'll say is definitely pack layers. So during the day, it's going to be extremely hot, but if you're going to be up on a cliffside restaurant at night, the wind is going to get you and you're going to be freezing cold. So I just brought some linen shirts to throw on over my outfits, and I was more than comfortable. If you're looking for my exhaustive list of my must-haves for international travel, 99.9% of which I took to Greece with me and used, I will leave that link in the description as well, so you can go check that out. It is in my Amazon storefront under must-haves for international travel. Now let's talk about the don'ts, what not to bring. First and foremost, I say this every single time, leave your heels at home. I know they look cute with sundresses. I know they look cute on a night out. You are going to be so upset if you wear them out. In Greece, the streets are always uneven. They're made out of marble. They can be cobblestoney. It's just not good for your ankles and or your feet. You do not want to twist an ankle when you have to walk a ton. So definitely just leave the heels at home. I know it's sad. Opt for cute sandals instead. I promise you will thank yourself. Also, bring cute clothes, but make sure they're comfortable. Don't wear anything that you're going to be super uncomfortable in, especially in the heat. I know I keep saying this, but it is super hot there during the summer, and you do not want to be uncomfortable in an outfit that you're going to be in for 8 hours a day. Leave your coats at home unless it's calling for extreme rain when you're going to be there. Then a little light rain jacket, totally okay. But other than that, you can leave those at home. Number 4, what was your favorite island? This is such a hard question for me. I feel like I am kind of torn between Santorini and Paros. I feel like I did the most fun activities in Santorini, but I feel like Paros was just very relaxing and such a vibe. If I was absolutely forced to pick, I think I would go Santorini. It was just like the highlight of my trip, but Paros is a very, very, very close second. Number 5. How many times did you hear ABBA? The ABBA soundtrack played every minute of every day. So if you don't like hearing songs from Mamma Mia, probably not for you because you literally can't escape it. There's going to be sing-alongs on the buses, at the clubs, at the bars, at dinner, during your day-to-day activities. ABBA's everywhere. You can't escape her in Greece. I'm so sorry. Number 6, is this a good trip to go on solo? Absolutely, without a doubt, 100% yes. I get this question for every single trip review that I do, and if I'm honest with you, every single trip that EF Ultimate Break offers, I feel like is a great one for solo travel. The beauty of traveling with EF Ultimate Break is a ton of people go solo. You know, sure, some people go with their friends or their significant others, but a lot of people travel solo. So you are never going to be solo by yourself. Greece is an incredible trip, and you are sure to have the trip of a lifetime. So many fun activities. The food is great. The local people are so kind. This trip is surely good for solo travelers. The first time I went to Greece with the EF Ultimate Break, I was a solo traveler. I made the best of friends. This time around when I was in Greece, I actually knew a lot of them from previous trips or the ambassador program, so it was great. But there were still solo people on our trip, and some of them are now my best friends today. Number 7 comes from one of my friends that actually went on the trip with me. When can we go back? Tomorrow. Book my flight now. I'm ready. Number 9, who is your tour director? My tour director for this trip, his name is Nikos. He is my favorite tour director that I have ever had in the 16 countries that I have done with EF Ultimate Break. He has such a kind personality. He is an absolute blast. He's hysterical. He really makes sure that he is there for you from day to night. He spent a lot of his time with the entire group. We really got to know him. He was super knowledgeable. He was able to answer any question we had, whether that be about the history or local recommendations. He was just on top of it. When I tell you I would rate him a billion out of 10, I'm not exaggerating. If you ever have Nikos, count yourself lucky. And last but not least, how were your flights? Now, my flights on the way there were an absolute breeze, but on the way home, not so much. This is absolutely of zero fault to EF, and this has everything to do with my beef with Air Canada. So the first flight from Athens to Montreal, super smooth, no problems. I went through customs in Montreal, so all of that was taken care of. From Montreal to Toronto, I had a little bit of a delay, but I still had plenty of time once I landed in Toronto to make it to my next flight, which was to Pittsburgh. However, when I landed in Toronto, I knew I had to have some pep in my step to get to my next flight. Because I had already done customs in Montreal, I did not need to do customs again But I did need to have my passport and boarding pass checked before going to my next flight. When we were approaching the counter to do so, there was a man standing there that said, "I hate to break it to you, but y'all aren't getting on your flights." So I was a little confused because I hadn't handed him any of my stuff yet. I'm like, how do you know that? I still have plenty of time to get on. It's not departing for a while. The doors aren't closing. Like, what's going on? He said that all of their customs agents had gone home for the day. So there was no way we were getting on our flights tonight. And after the long travel day that I had just had, crocodile tears are coming out of my eyes because I'm so frustrated. I just wanted to be home in my bed. This man goes on to explain that customs shut down at 8 p.m. And so I'm asking him, how is that possible? You have international arrivals and departures going out after this time. I'm super confused how that makes any sense. He tells me that's just how it goes, and they are not letting us get on these flights. They're not doing it. They're not letting us go to our next destination. I am then sent to 3 different places to try to go and get this sorted and get my butt home. I spend well over an hour and a half on their landline phones trying to speak to Air Canada customer service for them to tell me they can't get me home for 4 days. It's not going to work for me. So I'm panicking. I don't know what to do. My bags are like lost in baggage claim somewhere because they didn't put it on the flight out. So I had to go and try to find that. That took an hour and a half process. Then I was going to go try to get a hotel for the night so that I could decompress because, again, at this point I had been traveling for so freaking long. I was delirious and exhausted. Try to go to the hotel at the airport. They're trying to charge like $600, $700 a night, which is not happening. All the while, I'm trying to communicate with my mom and my poor boyfriend that it literally drove an hour and a half down to Pittsburgh with our animals to pick me up. But because he is such a saint and literally saved the day, he was like, "You're not staying in Toronto for 4 days." Absolutely not. They're not straining you. That's not happening. So he literally drove an hour and a half back to our house, picked up his passport, drove 5-6 hours to Toronto in the middle of the freaking night to pick me up and bring me home. So that is of no problem to EFs. That has everything to do with Toronto Airport and Air Canada. My beef is with them. That was the first time I had ever really had any flight issues though. Fingers crossed that never happens again because it was awful. That's all for the burning questions, but if you have any additional questions, go ahead and leave those down in the comments. I'll be happy to answer this for you. As a reminder, if you're looking at booking your first EF Ultimate Break trip, do so through the link in the description box. That's going to activate my promo code UAJustMandering100, which is going to give you an additional $100 off on top of sale prices. That's all for this video. Be sure to like and subscribe and let me know which trip you want me to review next. Bye!